Got a name for him?
Ewok.
What does that mean?
Oh, well, Ewok, did you ever watch,
Oh,
like, it's in Star
Ewa.
Wars?
Oh, okay, yeah, he
Yeah.
does.
He's about 3 years, 3 weeks old. He's probably the calmest one of all of them.
do is we get up here, like I'm in the busy house.
ATM people will be working on the NBA ATM machine if your arm goes off.
Going south. Going south. Yeah, it's gonna take 180. Those straps. What did you hear? Have it rolled up. Like, okay. Inside the house. What I'm going to do is get with you and see how it's going. Okay, Jim. Ready? Yeah.
About time he showed up to the show here. Ground 85, Charlie. You ready for 10-8? Yeah, looks like they're going to be a few minutes. Sorry if I cut through the gravel here, and I'll take 6 left for Lakewood. Said 85, Charlie. Third line's your discretion, but I missed the last thing. I'd like to, I'll just text you with 6 left and go to Lakewood if that's all right. November 85, Charlie, approved has requested taxi via the north ramp to runway 6 left. 85, Charlie. November, Christmas at the 4th of Bravo Red. And Romeo to runway 14, intersection Austin. Taxi back for Lakewood departure. Or for Lakewood. Delta 473 ground. Can you continue up ahead and follow right for 85 Charlie? Went right turn there by the 133. Yes, sir. 05 Kilo, I'd like to depart 14 from Mike and then go over and land on Hood Strip. November 05 Kilo, 84. Your stress will be making a right turn there into the next. Ground 44 Bravo, do we have any idea how long this will be? Not at this time. Can you stand by one? I'm desperately running strips here for local for these guys in your taxi. Yeah, but 773. Did you want to depart 14 or 612?
14, ma'am. 14 for 4573.
And Roger, taxi to runway 14, intersection, your choice.
Hey, what about it, Mike?
Okay.
I might have sound adventure. Okay.
Security.
The oil sheen is moving into Kachemak Bay tonight. Residents in the village of Port Graham are trying to boom off what they can.
Right now, it is the current that's sweeping the finger-like patches of oil toward the Cook Inlet. Oil has now been spotted washing up on the Chugach Islands, but for the most part, the large globs of oil seem to be staying offshore. Crews have boomed off the hatchery at Tatitlek Bay, just north of Port Graham, across the bay from Homer. Further south, oil has been reported washing up on the Barren Islands, just off Kodiak. That area is home to more than 6,000 sea lions and 650,000 seabirds. Kerry Kerrigan joins us live now with the latest on where the oil is.
Once again, being pushed by the currents. The winds are still coming out of the east and reported around 15 knots through tonight, which means if they're pushing out of the east, they're pushing oil towards the Kennedy entrance, which again is not good news. Heavy oil, the good news is there is not heavy oil reported towards the Kennedy entrance and around that end of the Kenai Peninsula. Well, let's take a look. Back to the maps we go to show you what's happening. Last night now we had the maps and we showed you that there was oil as far as Pearl Island, which is the center island of these three. It's Elizabeth Island out on the far western side of the Chugach Islands, then Pearl Island, then over to East Chugach Island. Now, last night we had oil reported this far, heavy oil. There is still heavy oil out this far, but now there's sheen up around the edge of the peninsula and up as far as English Bay. Seldovia here, and Homer is over here, and this is the way the currents go. They come up, eddy through the Cook Inlet, and then push down to the far side of Kodiak Island. The Barren Islands are right down here. There have been reports of some sheen down here, but also they think part of that may be that there's algae blooms up in the water, so part of it they think is that, but they do have a projection map which says oil should be traveling this way if it is not here already, and soon we will have a confirmation one way or the other as far as oil moving down towards Kodiak, as there is another briefing tonight at 6:30, so at 10 tonight we'll know if there's oil actually moving towards Kodiak, but right now the main part of the sheen is moving around towards English Bay.
And unlike the wind conditions, the currents are pretty steady, aren't they?
The currents are steady, and the wind's blowing the same way the currents are moving tonight and into tomorrow morning.
How quickly does that move?
It moves fairly slowly, but with the wind pushing it, obviously there's a little chop in the water, and it's getting rolled right along. The wind and the currents moving in the same direction at this time.
Okay,
Thanks a lot, Kerry.
There has been a change in direction of cleanup efforts in Prince William Sound.
John Tracy
is standing by live in Valdez. John, a new phase in the cleanup began today.
Tim and Laura, you are absolutely right. There is every indication, at least here in Valdez, that this cleanup has begun a new phase. The Department of Environmental Conservation reported today that some 3,000 beaches so far have been fouled by the oil spill. But for the past 2 days now, crews have begun an operation that just might help those beaches recover faster. 30 miles from Valdez, on a remote beach on Naked Island, there is an experiment taking place. Hoses are being used to wash the beach in an attempt to speed up a process that would take nature months, if not years, to complete. As hoses blast the rocks, the oil is washed to the beach line, where it can be retrieved by skimmers. There is a drawback to this operation. The same blast that removes the oil will also remove anything that might still be living on the beach. That's why scientists will only allow the so-called float and flush operation in limited areas.
We have identified certain beaches that we're afraid will be oiled for a considerable amount of time that can, through this process, possibly be speeded up in their recovery time. So in terms of how much difference, I think each little small step we take towards doing whatever we can to recover the area is useful and well worth doing. But
in In the meantime, Navy skimmers today resume the job of skimming oil from Sawmill Bay. The tides and calm weather continue to keep the oil from the Sawmill Bay fish hatchery. Today saw the return of Coast Guard Commander Admiral Paul Yost, who came with fresh assurances from the Bush administration that everything that can be done is being done. Yost says overflights show him dramatic improvement, but he says the Alaska spill has also taught him that what happened here in Alaska could happen anywhere else.
There's no contingency plan, whether it's San Francisco Bay, whether it's New York Harbor, whether it's Puget Sound. There's not a contingency plan that exists that would have addressed a spill of 50 million of 10 million gallons.
Admiral Yost said today that he expects a comprehensive shoreline cleanup plan no later than Saturday. Now, that led some scientists here to stick their tongue firmly in their cheek and say that perhaps the Admiral was being a little too optimistic, but then again they said he's a new guy here. In another very significant development today, Exxon finally came up with $15 million in so-called upfront money to assess environmental damages and develop a plan for recovery. Yesterday, U.S. Interior Secretary Emmanuel Lujan publicly blasted Exxon for not coming up with that money after 10 days of intense negotiation. But this morning here in Valdez, the head of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, Dr. William Evans, announced Exxon has indeed cut the check, the money to go towards not only assessing environmental damage, but to restoring Prince William Sound to its original condition.
We are very pleased with this agreement. The $15 million does not represent a cap. It represents a floor, if you will. It is a down payment. We do not have the slightest idea of what the assessment is going to cost.
Now, Tim and Laura, of that $15 million, apparently $8.5 million will be available in 3 days. The remaining $6.5 million will be handed out in increments of $1 million over after that period of time.
John, just how do they plan on spending that money?
Well, that's the question of the day, Laura. I asked the folks at NOAA who did receive the check, representing a group of trustees, which includes the state of Alaska. Right now, they don't have a firm answer. As with everything else down here, there are a lot of unknowns, but they said they hope to know exactly what that money will go towards in another couple of days. But they will be spending it, I'm sure, as fast as it comes in.
John, can we get a clear indication